This is the only video that you need to watch to learn GoHighLevel automations and become a master. We are going to talk why and when to use GoHighLevel automations compared to all other most popular automation platforms. We're going to explore all the triggers and actions going one by one so that you have a complete picture on all the possibilities. And then on the step number 3, we're going to build 3 completely different workflows from scratch so that you can apply the knowledge that you've learned on the previous steps. Now let's start with the basics. What is HighLevel? Now, usually we say that the HighLevel is the most customizable CRM in the world. But the CRM is just a part of this entire, let's call it, infrastructure. Because there are a lot of CRMs on the market. Where HighLevel actually stands out besides customizable options to build your own CRM for your own needs is the actual automation platform. It has one of the best automation capabilities in the world when it comes to the CRM inbuilt tools. And of course, the question that naturally comes up is, how is it different from all other softwares like N8N, Make, VoiceLevel, or Relevance? Now, maybe if you've been exploring the HighLevel or you're already using it, and you get confused, so when would you want, to use an external third-party software to build the automation workflow or the AI agent, or when you want to use the internal HighLevel automations and agents? Here is the rule of thumb that we follow and we recommend all of our clients to follow. If you're building anything related to marketing or sales, you first start with a HighLevel, exploring all the options and all the different possibilities. And then if something is missing, you're actually trying to connect it with the third-party platform. But if you do the backend automations that are not necessarily related to the customer communication, to the sales, to the pipeline stages, then you can go ahead and build everything right away in N8N, Make, VoiceLevel, Relevance, doesn't matter, and then maybe potentially connect it to the HighLevel further if there will be a need. Of course, one of the most popular questions that we get from the businesses and from people that we work with is, okay, if the HighLevel is the CRM, why would we use it if the business already has a CRM? Because most businesses do. And we usually position all of our solutions as the systems that are built on top of the HighLevel, and we are using the HighLevel as the interface. So we're not usually using HighLevel as solo CRM because, of course, you don't want to transfer the business to a separate CRM because this process is going to take longer. But even though it is basically a CRM and it has these capabilities, we are using the automation capabilities of the HighLevel because most of the workflows that we build are related to marketing or sales. And then either integrated on the backend with the third-party platforms or integrated with the CRM of the business and do the double-way sync so that both of these softwares, the CRM of the business, like HubSpot, Salesforce, NetSuite, is fully integrated with the HighLevel, even though the HighLevel can be connected with the third-party platforms on the backend. So now let's explore the HighLevel automations in details. Before we go into the interface, and I'm gonna present you what are the different ways for you to go about building the workflows inside, I want you to understand the very basic concept. You have triggers and you have actions, as with any platform. The trigger can be internal from the HighLevel side as well as the external, which is a third-party app or the webhook. Again, think about it this way. In order for automation to be started, the workflow, HighLevel call them workflows, we can call them automations. You need to have a trigger. When the trigger is triggered, and this could be an action within the HighLevel, like the contact details has been changed, the contact is created, or the external trigger, which could be the webhook that you generated, received the information, it actually goes through the sequence of actions. And again, actions can literally be anything. There are a lot of possibilities to go with the different triggers and different actions within one workflow. So I am going to show all of them to you, but let's start with the interface first. This is our version of the HighLevel, which is the one prompt that has all of the workflows already uploaded here, but we're not going to go over them. In order to access the HighLevel automations, you first need to go into the automation tab right here, and you'll see this interface. Now, it starts with a regular interface where you can either create a workflow by clicking this button and choosing creating it from scratch or from the template. You can also import it from a different campaign, which usually never done. So template meaning the HighLevel as a software has a lot of the different templates that you can use for your own purposes. But I would actually never recommend you to use the templates, even if you're starting from the beginning, because yes, they are doing some sort of a job and they can speed run the process. But if you're serious about integrating the workflows into your company or selling it to others, you really want to understand all the aspects of all the blocks that you are building on top. Now you can also create a folder here, and let's call it a YouTube video folder. And then within this folder, you are going to have multiple workflows that you create or import from the template. Now we also have multiple tabs here. All the workflows pretty self-explanatory. Needs review. Now, these are the workflows that, for example, have been showing some errors or bugs. And if you see something right here, it means that you should go inside and check the execution logs. Now, I don't know any people that are actually using the needs review workflows because there are some things that you can integrate within the workflows that will actually put the notifications to your device, to the email, that will signalize that the workflow is not running smoothly. Deleted, these are all the deleted workflows that you have for the past 30 days. After the 30 days, they will be removed. Now, the very interesting add-on that they recently added is the new Smart List feature. The Smart List feature basically allows you to filter the different workflows based on certain parameters. For example, if we want to find a workflow where the trigger is the customer reply. So let's say we are automating the client communication. We have multiple workflows where when customers send us a message, the workflow is getting triggered. But maybe we have a lot of these workflows, we have the different triggers types, and we don't really want to go into all of the folders. We can actually filter it right here. So here you can say, okay, where the trigger type is the contact reply, if we customer reply right here. And then if we apply this here, you will see all the workflows where the first trigger is the customer reply. Now we can go even further and then customize this list, adding the filter where the status is published. So now you only see one workflow where the trigger type is customer reply. This way, if something is not working and you know that this workflow that is messing up your entire pipeline should be published, you can filter through the published, quickly see the workflows, and then find the one that is not doing the right job. So that's pretty much it that you need to know about the different tabs within the automations workflow master tab. Now you can see here the global workflow settings. Basically, here you can set up the email notifications to different users depending on your company structure. So in case something, as I said, wrong with the workflow, instead of you going into the needs review, you can assign the user here, and then this user will receive an email notification that something is wrong. You can also pause the workflows for a certain period of time. Again, we almost never use that. Now, this is pretty much it regarding the interface. Of course, you can check the recent workflows, and you can also have a list of the workflows with the folders inside. So this is pretty much what you need to know about the interface. Now, let's create the automation and let's go over all of the trigger types that you can use. We will discuss the contact triggers, the premium triggers that the HighLevel has, the event triggers, and then all other triggers and possibilities that you can use. One important mention before we start going over all of the trigger options, you can see that the HighLevel is actively pushing their AI feature where you can type anything that you want here and it will recreate the flow for you. As I already said, it does apply to the templates as well as to the AI features within any platform builder. You should not use that if you're serious about learning the tool. I am the person who is telling you guys to sell the automations first if you're looking to build a business, or focus on the value even if you are trying to integrate these workflows into your own company. That is why you do need to understand the very basics. Of course, once you do understand the basics, you might want to use the external templates or the AI features to play around and create the general structure. But usually they will never be as you want them to be. And if you're not gonna have the basics, it's gonna be very hard for you to manipulate the workflow and then build on top of that. So now let's go into all of the trigger types. As I said, the triggers are categorized by contacts, events, here, appointments, opportunities, and other triggers. So let's go over them one by one so that you can see what and how you can trigger this specific automation. Birthday reminder, pretty self-explanatory. Once you have a contact, this contact has a birthday field. Once the birthday is up, you can trigger this workflow and potentially send this contact a message like, hey, John, happy birthday, wishing you the best of luck. Contact changed. It means that this trigger will wait for any contact fields to be changed and then it is going to be triggered. For example, here we can set up the email as the trigger, meaning when the email is getting changed with the AI, who is going to update the contact on the backend, or by one of the reps, humans within the CRM who will update the contact details. Once this action happens, it basically triggers this workflow, and then you can do whatever you want. Potentially, you want to get this email, send it to third-party email verifier to check if the email does exist, even though, again, HighLevel has their own email verifiers. The next trigger is the contact created. Again, pretty much simple. Once you create the contact inside the HighLevel CRM, this trigger and workflow will be triggered. Contact DND, which is do not disturb. When you are automating the client communications, and let's say you're sending this client text messages, when the client responds to your text messages saying stop or unsubscribe, HighLevel automatically will mark the contact as DND, which is do not disturb, meaning none of the outbound messages will be sent. But you can also mark it as a trigger right here to then trigger an external logic. Contact added. When you add any tag to this contact, tag edit, you can specify one or multiple tags by adding the same type of the filter like contact added or contact removed, this workflow will be triggered. Custom date reminder. Basically, it is going to put a reminder and trigger this workflow at a specific custom date. Now you can create a custom field through the settings with the date. If you go right here, go to the custom fields. If we add the field, you will have an option of the date picker. So this will be your date field. Then you can use this field. For example, the custom field is, let's say, import date. This will be your date from right here. And on this date, so because this is a custom field attached to the contact, you can attach this object to the opportunity. When the date is right now and today at the 8 a.m., it is going to trigger. Now, so let's say the date is tomorrow. So tomorrow at 8 a.m., this workflow will be triggered, but the tomorrow date must be in this custom field imported date. Now, the next one is the note edit. Obviously, the contacts as well as opportunities within the HighLevel can have notes. If we go back and check the opportunities tab right here, you will see that all opportunities have a way for you to add a note. And you can put the note right here. So when you create a note, for example, for this specific opportunity right here, when you save it, then this workflow will be triggered. The next one is note changed. Again, if you're having the note, but you change the note and then you save it, you are going to trigger the workflow. It can be actually used if you are actively managing the clients within the HighLevel, and if you have the people inside who are marking each and every prospect through the note. So whenever, for example, the note is created, this is how we use it. Whenever the note created or changed for a specific contact or the opportunity, we are triggering a specific workflow. We getting the content of this note and then placing it to a ClickUp, because we are using ClickUp for our project management. And inside the ClickUp, we have all the contacts. So now this contact note will be attached to the contact inside the ClickUp. Task added, a very similar thing to the notes, because for each opportunity and each contact, you can have and add tasks. So here, this could be a remind about payment, the description, and then a specific date with the time. When you click save, this workflow will be started. We are also using it because, as I said, we're using ClickUp as our project management software, and there we have all the team tasks. So it's easier to set the task inside the HighLevel that is going to be specifically attached to the opportunity or the contact. But then we sync this specific task with the ClickUp task so that the team can actually have one dashboard. It doesn't need to check the ClickUp as well as the HighLevel task, which has a pretty standard interface. Task reminder, same thing. When the task is due at 8 a.m., it is going to remind to completed. Task completed. When the task is completed, this is going to start the workflow. Contact engagement score. Not a lot of people use the engagement score in general within the HighLevel, which is a miss because it is a pretty powerful feature. If you go to the settings, you will see an option here of manage scoring. Basically, you can score your contacts automatically or the opportunities based on certain criteria. And these are the default criteria from the HighLevel. Let's say when the contact opens the email, it is going to add 1 point to the contact. Once the user books an appointment and confirms the appointment, or the appointment is automatically confirmed, if you set it in the calendar settings, the contact is going to have 1 additional point. So this way you can add different points to the contact and then when, for example, a certain amount of points is reached, you can trigger this specific workflow. You can say, okay, when the score is greater than, for example, 10, meaning this is a highly intended prospect. So this prospect is ready to buy. So you can technically create a task for yourself to call this prospect and say, hey, John, I see that you've been doing a lot of actions recently with the business. So are you interested? So let's talk. Okay. Just as an example. So within here, you can create, of course, the custom rules. And you can say, okay, if the action is, let's say, payment received with the payment status, is the success, maybe you're gonna add this client 5 points because this client completed the payment. Of course, again, he became the customer. So you would want to add him to a different marketing campaign for your most successful, highest scored customers, prospects, or leads. So this is pretty much it. Again, it is rarely used, but it is very powerful. Now let's talk about all the events triggers within the HighLevel. The first and the biggest one for us as the automation builders who are exploring the space using different tools and creating the most powerful solutions is the inbound webhook. Inbound webhook is technically a webhook that will receive information from a third-party software. Now, in case you never interacted with the webhooks before. Now let me explain you the webhooks in a very simple terms. You can watch some YouTube videos that are gonna go over the webhooks theory and all the different aspects for 1 hour, but I want to give you a simple explanation. For now, you can think about the webhook as the URL, okay? It's like an address. Okay, so you can put information to this address from other resources. Let me give you an example. If we go to the Postman, and the Postman is used as a software to interact with different API endpoints and webhooks. Doesn't really matter for right now. Now here, you can see that we can create a request, okay? So when we create a request, it asks us to put the URL here or the endpoint. So here, we will place our webhook, or again, just the URL. Then we need to choose a method of what do we want to do with this webhook. So let's say we want to post the data to this webhook. So we want to send something to this specific URL. We can do a lot of things. We can do the authorizations, we can add the headers, the body, but let's add the parameters. And the parameter will be this, and the value is testing YouTube. If we click send, what it's gonna do, it's going to make a post request to this webhook URL. Basically, it's going to send the parameters that you input here into this URL. And this is why you have the status here, success. Now, this webhook URL was automatically generated by the HighLevel once we clicked on new trigger and we chose this premium trigger, which is the custom webhook. So we got it from here. So we already sent the data from the Postman to this webhook. If we click fetch sample results, here you will see one payload. And payload, again, is basically the information that was received to this URL. So if we click it right here, you will see we have a lot of data. Now, this is the default data that is getting sent by the Postman. But here you can see that we have query parameters because we are sending the parameter right here. And one of the parameters is this, testing Eugene. And if we click save, basically what it's gonna ask us is to create a contact. We can basically do something random for now. and then remove that. And we're gonna have the trigger inbound webhook, meaning, again, we're having the URL. Once this URL is triggered, or when someone sends the information to this URL, in our case, from Postman, this webhook will be triggered. And then we can use the information from here for our own needs. As an example, let's say we're gonna create the contact, right? And if we say, okay, the contact email will be, so let's say here, we're gonna send the parameter as the email, and the email will be eugene@gmail.com. So if we send it right here, we already did, so we can put something to save, go to the back to the trigger. It's not gonna update it because of course we need to enable it and we need to map it. But what I'm doing right now, I am loading the recent send, because every time someone sends the information to this webhook URL, it is going to trigger this workflow because we have it as a trigger. So here we have the request. And if you go to this request, you can see there is a parameter, which is the email, and this is the email. So if we click save, then we create the contact email, and now we can click right here. Basically, these are custom values. And here you can see inbound webhook trigger. If we click on it, query parameter, and you see the email. So now if we save it, what it's gonna do, once we send the information here, it's going to create the contact with the email that equals to the information that was received by this specific webhook. I hope this is pretty clear. It's very commonly used, and we're gonna use it in the examples further in the video. The next event is basically a call status. So let's say when you are making the phone call or when you are receiving the call from the prospect and this phone number is attached to the HighLevel, you can trigger the different automation. Let's say this is the incoming call. Maybe you would want to notify someone from the team. The next one is the email events. Now, because HighLevel can be used as a marketing platform where you can create the email campaigns like you can do in MailChimp or Active Campaigns, you can also trigger the workflows and automations based on different events. So let's say if the event is bounced. So if you're sending the email to the customer and the customer provided the email, but the email is not valid. So you send the email to this customer and the email was bounced. What you can do technically, you can trigger the workflow, and then if the customer has the phone number, trigger the outbound SMS saying, hey John, just tried to send you the email. I saw it was bounced. Can you provide me the updated one? This is the one that you provided, okay? So pretty, again, self-explanatory, and there are a lot of ways for you to use it. There are a lot of the filters that you can do. You can filter only, for example, the emails that are getting sent within a specific workflow. Then you can also filter them further, for example, by, as I already said, by the specific event, maybe not only bounced, but maybe the click. So if within this workflow, you have an email that is going out, and within this email, you're having a link to purchase the product. So now, basically, whenever someone clicks this link, you know that the person was interested to buy. So what you can do, you can actually wait for, let's say, 10 minutes and then verify if this customer bought a product or not. And if not, you can maybe create a task for yourself to call this prospect. Or if you go even further, you can let AI to contact this person and say, hey, John, I just sent you the email like an hour ago, and I saw that you collect, so you're interested, but you haven't bought. Can I clarify why, or can I answer some of the questions. Again, you can already start combining the different things and you can envision what you can build on top of that. Customer replied. It's very, very common trigger that we're using within the one prompt, because a part of the one prompt system, we have the AI sales reps that are getting triggered when the customer is sending an inbound message or when he replies to the outbound engagement, either the cold or the reactivation or the warm outbound that we do. What you can do here is, of course, you can trigger when the customer replied, but you first need to filter it through what are you triggering for. And primarily the use case here is the reply channel. So when the customer is replying to you or sending the message, and the reply channel is any of these channels. Now it can be the phone call, but for the phone calls, you can use a separate trigger. It can be the chat widget, the email, the messenger, the Google Business Manager. You can have the Instagram, the live chat, SMS, and the WhatsApp. So there are a lot of the different options. Now, of course, you can choose the email and you can filter it even further. So maybe if the email is received, or what is again very commonly used, the Instagram DM. So when the Instagram DM is received and the phrase contains a specific word like a bonus, so maybe you are posting the content and you are asking people to send you the DM with the word bonus to receive a free guide. This is what you're gonna use. So here you're gonna trigger this workflow on the Instagram when the reply channel is equal to Instagram and when the phrase contains bonus. Now, of course, you need to be very careful here, because whenever someone mentions within the communication with you or with one of your AI sales reps the word bonus, this workflow will be triggered. That is why you would want to niche it down through the different conditions even further, but I think you pretty much got the idea. The next trigger is the form submitted. Pretty, again, self-explanatory. Within the HighLevel, if you go into the sites right here, you have the forms and you have a pretty customizable and powerful form builder. So if I go, for example, to one of the forms right here, which is the ads opt-in. Within this form, you can add the different fields, you can add the custom fields that users would need to fill out. When this form is submitted, and again, you can use a direct link to this form and send it to the customers, or you might want to embed or integrate this form into different parts of your website. So whenever someone fills out this specific form right here, it is going to trigger this automation. If you set the trigger like this, you can, of course, filter on either trigger it on all of the form submits, or if the form submit is specific form. Now you can go again even further and you can say terms and conditions set to yes, in case you are trying to follow all the regulations and you want to only engage with people who said that they agree to receive the inbound messages from you or your team. Survey form submitted acts the same way as the regular form. Instead of creating the form right here, you can actually go to the service. It does have a bit of a different layout, so you can create a deeper experience for people to go over your form in a survey experience, aka like multiple steps. So you can have a form with the step number 1, they click, they go to the step number 2, and then once they go through the entire survey, here you can trigger the workflow. The next one is the trigger link clicked. This is a very underused trigger because trigger links generally in the HighLevel are not very popular, but it is pretty unfortunate. If you go to the marketing section right here, you can see the trigger links tab. If you go to the links, you can create a trigger link. Let me explain how they are used. Let's say you're sending the email to the customer. You're saying, hey customer, thank you for joining and welcome to our workshop or the webinar that you already checked, whatever. Here is the link for you to get all of our free resources. And the way you can do that is by literally just posting the link. So let's say if we get the one prompt example website, if we right now go to the automations, let's say we're gonna save this trigger, and let's say we're gonna get the email, send the email to the customer, and they're gonna say, hey, thanks for joining. Here you can see all the free resources, and you're gonna paste the link here. This is how 95% of the people within the HighLevel do that. Now, when they click this link, that's awesome. They can go in and explore the free resources. If they don't click the link, I guess they don't do that. But maybe when they click the link, it will also give you an additional type of the thing that you can reference in your further pipeline. So this acts like an additional point of reference for you to know that the contact is intended to buy what you have, or at least is interested in what you have to say. So think about it this way. So somehow we need to know that this customer clicked on this specific link. Now, you can of course say, okay, Eugene, but don't we have a trigger that was literally doing a very similar thing, which was the email event? So here we can say, okay, if the link was clicked in a specific workflow in an email, then you're gonna trigger this workflow. It does act the same way, but you can niche down even further with the links, because again, one email can have multiple links, one workflow can have multiple emails. So how do we do that? So how do we make it in a way that when the prospect clicks a very specific link on our email, on the text, or even on the website? I mean, on the website, it's not super relevant because you would need to match this customer with the contact that you have in the HighLevel. But how do you actually know if this customer did this action? This is why the trigger links were created. So here you can say free resources, for example. And for the free resources, you're gonna have this link. So you're gonna save it. So this will be now a trigger link. So if we go to this email right here, let's say we're gonna send the email to the customer, and the email will be with the subject test. And here you can say, hey, John, here are my free resources. But instead of sending the direct link right here that we cannot track, you can click here and you're not actually seeing it. This is one of the problems with the HighLevel. You would need to reload the workflow first. But once you select that option, you will be able to place the trigger link in a variable. So if we again set up the send email right here, and here we're saying something, here it is, this will be a trigger link of the free resource. So this trigger link will be pasted to the customer, right? And the customer will see it as a regular link. But when this customer clicks on this link right here, and let's say the subject is test, we can trigger this workflow. Again, it doesn't make sense because it's the same workflow, but I think you got the idea. This could be the email on any other step. So here you can say, okay, when the link is free resources, here's the practical example. Let's remove that. So let's say we're sending the email with our free resources. By the way, this is how I use it. When the people are signing up to my newsletter through the LinkedIn, they are clicking the link that says, here's the free resource, and we are hosting the free resources on Notion. So whenever they click it, so here we're triggering the automation. What we do, we're actually sending them the text. But what you, for example, can do, and we haven't covered the actions yet, but you'll know that you can add a specific score to this contact. So you can modify the score, and you can add maybe 4 points, right? Because this customer actually was interested in your free resources. So you can add the score to the contact and then have another automation that will be triggered because the score has been increased, and now you're going to interact with this customer a bit different. So it is very powerful. I would say that you need to learn it and you need to understand how to apply it to your specific use case. The next trigger is the Facebook lead form submitted. Now, the difference between the form submitted and the Facebook lead form submitted is that the Facebook lead form is the actual form that is created inside the Facebook Business Manager and the ad account. So if you go to the settings, if you go to the integrations tab here, once you integrate the Facebook, you're gonna have an option to also map and have the Facebook forms right here. Whenever you're creating the form, if you ever created the Facebook campaigns, you have multiple options. So let's say this will be your creative. And you can route, for example, this creative to a specific website URL, right? But you can also route this creative to what is called instant forms, right? So when you're routing it to the instant form, people are not going to the website after clicking on the creative or the ad. They actually have a pop-up where it says, okay, so please fill out your name, phone number, and email, and you're gonna be contacted, and maybe a few other things. So you create this instant form inside the Facebook. And once this Facebook form, instant form, is created, you can actually connect it right here. And you can say, okay, let's say if this is your question within one of your forms, because you can have your custom questions populated on this instant form before people, press submit. So let's say it's going to be like email, full name, and phone number, which is pretty straightforward. It's going to be automatically mapped to email to the email, full name to the full name, and phone number to the phone number. So when the people fill out the email, full name, and phone number on the instant form, this contact will be automatically created inside the HighLevel. But if you have additional questions in your instant form on Facebook, like what services you're interested in, you can actually map it to any custom field within the HighLevel. So now the contact will be created, and all the questions that he provided to the custom questions will be populated in the custom fields that you select here. So when you connect this form and when you map the fields, you can also trigger the workflow once this form is submitted. So whenever someone, again, clicks on your ad, he has the instant form pop up. This instant form has multiple fields. So this user fill out these fields, click submit, and receives the message. Someone will get back to you. This contact automatically gets created in the HighLevel with the custom fields that you mapped right here. And then you are actually triggering this automation, and you say, okay, when the page is, you can select the page that you're running the ads from. And when you say, okay, the form is any, so you're going to create it to any form, or you're going to connect it to a specific form if you have multiple ones right here. You're going to see, meaning again, contact filled out the form. He provided the questions. He was created in the HighLevel, and now we're triggering this automation. And then you can send him an SMS saying, hey, John, saw you filled out the form. Thank you. Can we chat right here? And this is how the majority of the engagement automations and the speed to lead activities related to the Facebook ads are happening. So let's delete this trigger and go to the next one. Same thing applies to the TikTok form submitted. Not a lot of people run the TikTok ads. Right now, it's more relevant for the e-com brands, but it's possible right here. You also have the LinkedIn lead forms, acts the same exact way. Video tracking. When you are creating a website on HighLevel or landing page, if you go to the sites right here, let's create a new funnel. And let's say it's going to be test, create right here. So when you do that, you're going to be able to build an entirely new layout however you want. So let's add a step. It's going to be a home page, and let's create the funnel here. So on the funnel, you can add videos, you can add photos, tags, you can do whatever you want. You can use the templates. But when you are, for example, let's add a column right here, and let's add an element, and this element will be a video element. So when you're adding a video here, you have multiple options. So you can have a video from the YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, custom embed. So you have a lot of options to kind of put the video here. But one of the options is the hosted video. So technically, you can upload a video right here, and then you can select it and it's going to be displayed. Usually, it is not how we or anyone build the landing pages on the HighLevel. The reason for that is because third-party video players are usually performing better and you have more analytics to that. But in case you're doing that, an option that you can have is you can have a video tracking trigger where basically if, you can say, okay, if the video is any of the, so let's say if this is the video, and if, let's say the video duration percentage is greater than 30%, meaning if someone watched the video that you're hosting, it's very important. You cannot, of course, trigger that if you're, posting and pasting the video from the YouTube. If you're hosting the video, if you uploaded it to the HighLevel, you can trigger this workflow if someone watches this video for more than 30 seconds or 30% of the video. Now, of course, there are a lot of the nuances. Technically, it can be very useful. And let's say if someone watches, 90% of the video, probably this prospect is very interested in what you have to say. And technically, you can send him the text. But the problem is that you need to first match the contact. So if this is a VSL, right, that can be watched by any people, right? Not necessarily only people within your HighLevel CRM. You'll not be able to do that because we don't, the HighLevel cannot match the contact with a specific, the contact that is watching the video that is triggering this specific workflow with a phone number to send this SMS or email in case it's needed to. That is why it's not superly commonly used, but it is an option for you to keep in mind that in case you wanted it, so you can do that. Now, the next trigger right here is the number validation and the messaging error SMS. So these are more like the fallback automations that you can build. So for example, whenever someone fills out the form, so here you can validate if the number is not valid, right? Now, of course, when you're creating the forms, you can actually pre-verify the numbers, but in case some contact is getting populated, okay, in the HighLevel, and when this contact has a not valid number, you can trigger this workflow and then do some other things. Same thing applies to the messaging error, meaning when you are sending the messages, and this is actually a very, very common issue that a lot of messages cannot be delivered. And this especially relevant either A, if you are having different numbers from Twilio that, for example, cannot send messages to international numbers, or if you are just having the bad numbers from the customers, from the leads. So if you say, okay, if the error code is, invalid phone number, or you can choose a specific error code right here. Let's say if you're sending the SMS, outbound SMS, right, or the engagements. Let me give you an example. So let's say you're gonna have a trigger, right, where first you're running the ads. Okay, whenever someone fills out the form, instant form, you are, filling out, creating the contact inside the HighLevel, and then engaging with this person, saying, "Hey, John, thanks for filling out the form. Let's talk." Okay, but let's say that the John is not actually from the US, the John is from the UK, and you have your Twilio number that is connected to the HighLevel that cannot send outbound text messages to the UK from the US number. So it's going to be a different automation, of course, where it's happening. But when it happens, here you can trigger this workflow knowing that the John haven't received this, message. So you either better go manually to John contact, send this message from a real phone number from the UK, for example, number, to attach this phone number on the back end to the contact so that then all the communications from all the automations will be done from this phone number. Or you do something different, okay? You assign this John lead to a different workflow that is not going to have any text outbound messages because you don't really want to ignore error codes, especially if you are putting the volume, because more errors you're gonna receive if you're using something like Twilio connected to the HighLevel. Your Twilio account reputation will go down because a lot of the messages are not gonna get received. So you need to pay attention with that right here. Already discussed LinkedIn lead forms acts the same way as the Facebook forms. Funnel website page view. Now, this is a trigger that is actually connected to the custom actions and custom triggers that you set up usually on the Facebook. So for example, whenever someone visits, the page, and you have this page view action, which is the custom action from the Facebook pixel, you can trigger the automation. Again, it's rarely used, and the reason for that is because usually these actions, the page view actions, are done on the landing pages side, and you cannot match the contact to do anything with the contact in this nature. But you can would want to, whenever someone visits your page, put a notification to your team saying, hey, congrats, we have a new visitor, right? But again, so it's usually not super relevant. Quiz submitted, it's the same way as the surveys as well as the forms. You can create the quiz here through the builder, and then whenever someone submits this quiz, this workflow is getting triggered. The next one is new review received. Now, there are a lot of the things that you can do with the reviews, and that is why the HighLevel has its own, reputation management capabilities. You can connect different apps like Google, Pinterest, Facebook to receive the reviews. And when, for example, the review is received, you can check, for example, the rating. And if the rating is less than 3, you're gonna trigger the automation, and you're gonna, for example, task, you're gonna add you're gonna assign the user, any user like Eugene, to this specific contact. Of course, you would first want to find the contact that you would want to assign to this user, but you can do a lot of good things when the new review is received, especially if you're trying to automate the loyalty loop, what we call, or post-purchase experience for customers. Again, there is a reputation management. There are a lot of things that you can do with the reviews inside the HighLevel. They even adding their AI agents into this, reputation type of the thing, but you can build something custom. Prospect generated. This is in case you are using the HighLevel prospects. I don't even want to cover this because personally never used it. Click to WhatsApp ads. It's very similar integration what you would do with the Facebook, LinkedIn, or TikTok. It goes through the external API. So if you are, for example, running the ads from the WhatsApp that is connected through the settings to your HighLevel account right here, you'll be able to trigger the workflows based on the actions that are happening within the ads. External tracking event. This is basically a very similar thing to the page view, but here you can select an event from the Facebook manager that you created. So again, for example, form submitted, it was one of the custom events that we've been running the ads towards from the Facebook account that is connected to our HighLevel. So whenever the form is submitted, and not because you can of course trigger this workflow by the actual form submitted, okay, which is going to be 100% accurate, or you can trigger it by the event that your Facebook pixel receives. Again, not commonly used. We used it once to A/B test the tracking, but that's pretty much it. Appointments trigger. The first one is the appointment status. We are actually using it a lot. So you can say, okay, event type, is normal, but then when the appointment status is canceled, So whenever someone canceling the appointment, yeah, sure, it's going to be updated in the calendar. But what we usually do, we send the engagement message saying, hey, John, I saw that you canceled the appointment. Can you clarify the reason? Because again, if John is kind of still interested and cannot show up, usually in 70 to 80%, he'll reschedule it because there is a rescheduling link. Sometimes, of course, people cannot make it and they just cancel it. So you need to reach out back to them, say, hey, are they still interested? You want me to reschedule, or you want some questions answered? And this is how you can trigger this specific workflow right here. A customer book an appointment, the most straightforward one. Whenever someone books an appointment within your calendar, and you can say, okay, in the calendar, this is the calendar, you're gonna trigger this workflow. Again, it is very, very commonly used when you are automating the engagement with the people who booked an appointment. There's a service booking. It's not available because you can see that there is the integration that needs to be done, and there is a location that needs to be enabled in the settings. Opportunities status changes. Now, again, I already covered that. Opportunities are basically the pipeline on the HighLevel, right? So some CRMs call it literally like a pipeline, but the HighLevel calls them opportunities, and they have the pipeline. So you have first pipelines, you have multiple pipelines right here, and each pipeline has multiple opportunities, right? So when this specific opportunity is changed, right? Either, for example, the status of the opportunity is changed. You can filter it through however you want. Maybe when the opportunity is getting created, right? Or when the opportunity changed in general, AKA, you can say opportunity change. The status change is when you're, for example, changing the status of the opportunity to done, won, lost. Opportunity changed is different because here you can track the actual fields, right? So for example, when the communication is changed to WhatsApp right here, this opportunity will be triggered. So it's not only tracking the status, it can track everything. Pipeline stage changed. Again, you can do this through the opportunity change. It's just an additional action. So whenever someone goes from the deposit to not interested, or from not interested to the deposit, or back and forth, this can be triggered. Stale opportunities. This is very specific. That is going to say for how long the opportunity has been, available, and you can do a third-party actions on top of that. Again, would not recommend you to use it. You can get away with the regular opportunity changed or opportunity status changed if you're only tracking the status. And of course, we have a lot of other triggers for affiliate marketing. So when affiliate is created, if you are specifically running the HighLevel affiliate campaigns, or if you're having your own campaigns within the HighLevel interface, or if you're hosting the courses in the HighLevel, there are quite a few different things that you can do with these triggers. Payments, this is where you can do different triggers related to the purchasing process of the customer. Invoice, when the invoice is sent, paid, partially paid, because again, within the HighLevel payments, you can do a lot of different things. You can create the invoices, you can create the checkout links, you can create the products. What we usually use it for is the purchase made, so payment received. When the payment is received, we are, of course, verifying the payment, what is the product, and then doing some things. Order form submission and order submitted. So these are, of course, different forms, because the forms that we have been created through the sites right here are not specifically related to payments. And these are the forms that are actually gathering all the details from customers. And because HighLevel has an option for you to, through the funnel, to create a multi-step form. So if we, for example, go to the funnel that we have been just creating right here for the testing, if we go into this specific funnel, right, where we were putting the video, so here you can have another checkout, you can have an order form. Now you can have a one-step order form or you can have a two-step order form. The two-step order forms are usually, and before we add that, we need to add, let's say, the column, and here we add the two-step order form. So here they fill out the details, then they go to the next step. And it's actually very, very commonly used in the two-step order form process, because not all the people that fill out the information here complete the checkout. So what you can do, you can actually track the order form submissions, right? And then you can filter the people who haven't completed the payment, aka abandon the checkout, and then get back to them. Now, you can also check what is the status of the payment, if it was declined or whatever. So you can kind of build a lot of different things here. Same thing with the documents and contracts. Same literally kind of logic applies as to the invoices, subscriptions, refund. You can do the manual refunds to the people who ask for it. But again, usually this is not that commonly used because the refunds are done automatically. Coupon code applied when you are creating the coupon codes for people. If you are, again, processing all the payments through the Stripe that is connected to the HighLevel and you're using actively the interface right here, you can create a different coupons. When the coupon code is getting applied, you can, for example, lower or increase the score of the contact based on the fact that the coupon code was applied. And there are a lot of different things. Now, the other trigger types are usually like very specific to the platform, like Shopify, Facebook, Instagram. This is still in beta, but we're already actively using it. For those of you who ever tried or actively do the social media marketing, you know that one of the most popular softwares for that is called ManyChat. ManyChat allows you to automate basically the backend of your content. A lot of people use it and in a way to engage with people who make comments. So for example, you are posting something and you say, hey, this is the automation that I'm building. If you are interested, please comment down this word, right? So, and you could always, like, ManyChat is not the only software, it's just the most popular one. You could trigger the workflow. So whenever someone sends the, again, like based on our previous example, the word bonus, or makes the comment with the word bonus, this person will receive the inbound DM from the from the automation, but from the personal account of the Instagram who posted this specific reel or post, saying that, hey, here's your bonus, thanks for the comment. For quite some time, HighLevel has been testing the same feature on their own. So here you can do the same thing. So you can trigger the workflow based on the Instagram comments. So you can say, okay, so when the page is Eugene Kadzin, you can check the post type. So of course it should be like a published post. Now you can, of course, choose a specific post. For example, right here, as you can see, one of my recent posts was comment AI webinar for the full blueprint. So people were commenting under this post at certain things. Now, some of them were commenting AI webinar. Some of them were just asking the questions, but if they're commenting, they're interested. So whenever someone comments under this reel and we trigger this workflow, then what we can do, we can send the Instagram DM to this person saying, hey, thank you for commenting. Here is your link. And again, remember, we can use the trigger links. So then we can see the people who actually clicked on this link through the resources and then assign a different score to this person. So that the next time when he comes in, or when this prospect starts asking questions, we understand that he got access to our free resources. So there are a lot of things that you can do. Now, the reason why the HighLevel has them in beta, because there are quite a few features that are missing compared to the ManyChat, but they do, like these specific actions do 80% of the job. Now, they are robust, so they work, and I haven't ever experienced any issues, so you can also start using them for your own use cases. Now, community certificates, whatever, is very specific to different use cases. But other than that, what is left to explore is the premium triggers. Of course, we will not go over the premium triggers from different softwares, and there are quite a few of them if you go into the discovery page right here, depending on the marketplace apps that you can install. The one thing that I want to mention is what are premium triggers and how they are different from the regular ones. So you can see, for example, that the inbound webhook is actually a premium trigger because there is a crown. And all of these custom actions, so if you're trying to make a custom action that is connected to a third-party app, this is going to be a premium trigger. You need to pay for the premium triggers from the HighLevel. So whenever you are using this inbound webhook, and when this webhook is getting triggered, right, you are going to pay the price. So if we go right here, HighLevel recently changed their pricing model to make it much more affordable at scale. But at the base level, you are going to pay $0.01 per execution, so 1 cent. So again, when you are sending the data, for example, to this custom webhook, it's getting triggered, it's going to charge you 1 cent. Or within the workflow, if you are using a premium actions or premium triggers from other third-party apps, you're still going to pay 1 cent. Now, it might seem like not a lot, and you have a free 100, executions with your plan, but it actually is a lot at scale, okay? And at times, we've been paying $500 to $1,000 for one of our accounts for custom action executions. Of course, we've been running like a huge volume. But what they recently did is they added the scale plan. So for only $50, you can basically remove 60% of this cost. Now, as I said, for one of the accounts, we've been paying $1,000 for close to $1,000 for the custom executions. So now we are going to pay $400. Now, it's still a lot of money for the premium actions, but keep in mind, it's more than 2,000, conversations that we've been handling per day. And because we're using the custom actions a lot and connecting on the back end to the end. So yes, it is pricey, but it's worth it. Okay. So this is something to keep in mind. Again, if you're starting or if you don't have a huge volume, it's not going to make the difference. Okay. Maybe you're going to pay like $1 to $10 additionally per month. So more you pay, of course, more it is painful to the pockets, but again, probably more volume you have and more money you are going to make. So guys, this is pretty much it related to the trigger types within the HighLevel. So now what we need to discuss is action types and all the different actions that you can do inside the HighLevel automations. We're going to go over the contact actions, communication actions, the data actions, as well as the internal actions. So let's go over them one by one, the same way as we did with the triggers. If we open it right here, of course, you'll see the first one is the contact actions. Now create contact. So whenever there's a trigger, you're creating the contact and you can assign the contact based on the different fields. Keep in mind that in order to create the contact, you must have, so this contact must have either the email or the phone number. So if you try to, save it right now, it's not going to do anything. So even if you are going to, add the postcode, of course, because any contact needs to have an email or phone number as the identifier. Find contact, again, pretty commonly used. So whenever there is a trigger, as we were exploring, for example, right here, so we are sending the email, but then we need to find the contact with this specific email. So let me give you an example. So if we add the custom trigger, which is the inbound webhook, we'll get this webhook, we'll replace it here, and we're going to send the details. So there is an error because the body payload is empty. So because I forgot to do that. So if you say the email, and this will be the email, if we send it again, this is going to be the success. If we go here, fetch this example, we're gonna have the request right here. So here, you're gonna have the email. So somewhere, for example, from somewhere, you send this email, and it automatically, after you create a custom webhook trigger, it automatically shows that you need to create a contact. But we don't need to create a contact. We need to find the contact. Okay, so email again. So this is what we usually use again. So now we delete that, and then we use the find contact. So we find the contact using the email, and the email we're mapping from the inbound webhook trigger through the query parameter, the email. So now it's actually going to create a branch. This branch means if the contact was found, then you can, for example, update the contact fields. If the contact was not found, you maybe want to create the contact right here with the email that was again passed from this webhook. So this is pretty much everything that you need to know about this specific action type, because it's very, very commonly used. Update contact fields. Pretty self-explanatory. So let's say we found the contact, and then we will update a custom field of this contact. Let's say the custom field could be the country, and the country Austria. Okay. You can also put it dynamically if you change it right here. So let's say if in the parameters you would put the country and you're gonna say Belarus, okay, you're gonna send it, and if you map it, you're gonna, of course, you need to first send it, so you're not gonna see the custom fields right here. And sorry, see, like this is why it's bugging sometimes. You would need to choose the inbound webhook here, and here you'll have the country, and you'll be able to map that. So again, update custom fields is basically you can update any standard or custom fields for a specific contact. Add contact tag or remove the tag, pretty much self-explanatory, but it's very, very cool that you can actually create the tags from here. They recently added it, and before that you would need to go to the settings and then create the tags from there. The next action is assigning the conversation to the user. For example, what we can do is, let's say when the contact was found, that's fine. But if the contact was not found, so when the webhook received the email, and this email is not from one of the contacts in our CRM, sure, we can create this contact, but then maybe we want to assign this contact to a specific user to then let this user know that, hey, this is the new contact, so can you please check and maybe contact him manually, or just make sure that everything works fine. So let's delete the action right here and go to the next one. Remove assigned user. Again, you're literally going to remove the user who being assigned to the contact. If you, for example, put it right here and you remove the assigned user, so now this prospect will be unassigned. If this prospect or the contact has been already unassigned, nothing is obviously going to happen. So the next one is the enable or disable do not disturb. Now remember, what we had is we had a trigger which was basically triggering when the contact is marked as do not disturb. Now, if you want, you can set it as a trigger, and then literally the next step you can do, you can disable DND for all of the channels, because the DND is getting triggered and like automatically assigned automatically from the HighLevel. You can disable this settings, this parameter in the settings, but usually it is enabled by the default. So what you can do, you can trigger the automation when HighLevel automatically marks this contact as do not disturb, and then remove this mark so that then you can continue communicating with this client. But again, this is probably not what you want, because if the client said stop, you probably want to stop. The next one is add to notes. Again, you can attach a note to the contact. Now you can also copy contact. Now pay attention that this is also the premium trigger that you will pay a premium for. And what you can do, it's basically copying the contact. You cannot copy the contact within the same HighLevel account, or at least you should not. But what you can do, if you have multiple accounts, multiple sub-accounts under your own HighLevel agency, you can duplicate and copy the contact to another sub-account for various reasons. You can copy all the text from the contact, you can copy all the custom fields, and if the contact already, for example, exists in the other sub account that you have that you're copying this contact to, you can update with the tags and the custom fields right here. If we exit that, edit conversation, basically you can mark a conversation as read or unread. If you go into the conversations tab right here, if you go to the all, for example, I have nothing in the unread. If we click on this contact, if we click it unread, it's gonna be populated here. So you can do the same thing manually, just in case you are kind of using this as the way to track all the prospects. We're not using it because primarily we are using the star option, where we can star this specific prospect to then go back and not miss him in the pipeline. The next action that you can do is add a task. Again, as I was already saying, whenever something is happening, you can not only assign this specific contact and the user within your HighLevel, but if you want to do both or you want to do one, you can also assign and create the task for a user about this specific contact. Now you can delete the contact, you can modify contact engagement score. This is what we've been talking when I was showing you the different triggers options. So for example, whenever someone clicks on a trigger link, you can add a certain amount of points to the specific contact right here. You can add followers to the contact, followers meaning the additional users from your HighLevel. So let's say that if you have a bigger team, this contact, he has been created, and then he is assigned to a specific user from your team. And then you can also add other team members, but not as the assignee, but rather as followers to then still be on the same track. Now, the communication is a huge part of the action capabilities in the HighLevel. This is what is commonly used to communicate and automate the communication between your business and the specific customer, client, prospect, or lead. So send email, pretty straightforward. Here you are sending the from name and from email. You can see that these are not the required fields. And the reason for that is because if you go to the settings, if you go to the email services, this is where you will be able to set up the default parameters. If you go to the dedicated domain, here you'll have a dedicated headers, which is the name and the email. So this is where it's gonna get the information to place here if you keep it empty. You can add the CC or BCC just in case it's needed. Obvious is the subject. Any of these fields can be dynamic, but usually it's not, needs to be dynamic. You can see that there is no to field. So there is no field where you can put the address to send the email to, which might be confusing at first. And the reason for that is because you either need to have a find contact or create contact before it, or you need to have a trigger that is getting triggered based on the contact details. Again, so because there is no to address, it automatically gets the email address from the contact that is within this workflow, okay? And for this contact to be inside the workflow, you either need to have a contact trigger. So when, for example, the contact changed, this workflow is getting triggered, but this workflow understands what is the contact and what is the email of this contact. But if this workflow is getting triggered by a third-party webhook right here, you need to first find the contact with this email, and then if the contact was not found, create it. But if the contact was found, you can just send an email from here, and we can move it here because again the contact was found. So it's gonna send the email from the name that is provided by default here, and from the email that is directly provided here by the default with this subject and with this message to the contact that was found. Again, subject, you can put whatever you want, test. You can choose different templates. in case you need it, you can set up the templates in the marketing right here. If you go to the emails, you can do whatever you want. You can actually design them, because again, here, you're gonna have a harder time to design a specific template. But within here, you can design a template specifically for different campaigns and then reuse these templates here. Message could be anything. You can use the custom values from the contact details to use in the body. So you can say, hey, in here, you'll say custom value, contact, first name. Hey, John, I know you are from, and then let's say if this contact has a country here, contact country. I know that you are from Austria. And then here is the link. And instead of you sending a static link, you would send a trigger link, okay, right here. So this is basically what you do. You can change the different fonts. We almost always use Arial 15 pixels and line height to the 1.5. So this is the standard parameters that we use for 99.9% of the emails, because from our testing, this is what looks the best on all of the devices, not too big, not too small, and across, the different kind of platforms and email clients. You can attach, documents here. Unfortunately, you cannot attach the dynamic documents. So for example, maybe you're making the API call and you're getting the document and you would want to attach this document here. I'm pretty sure they will add it at some point, but it's not possible right here. You would need to, do the static documents. And you can send this email just to check how the overlay looks. So let's go to the next action after the email, which is the send text. Now, again, you can have the templates that you've previously created, and you can have the message here. Again, same variables that you can reuse from the contacts right here. Hey, first name, I know you're from this, and here's the trigger link right here. You can also attach documents in files. And again, compared to the email, here we can do that dynamically. So here you can even attach the documents that were passed through the inbound webhook trigger, but you cannot do the same thing with the email. The one thing that I forgot to mention about the emails is the statistics. So here in the text, we can see how many texts were delivered, how many links have been clicked, how many been failed, and how many opted out. Meaning sending stop, do not contact me again, or unsubscribe. So if we go into the email action here, we have a similar stat. So we have delivered, total, opened, clicked, replied, bounced, unsubscribed, accepted, rejected, complained. Now, one very important note to make, I've been making a lot of videos about the cold email specifically, but the open rate is not a valid metric for you to track. Now, it is a metric for you to understand if you are landing into the main inbox or not. But right now, because of the different, policy changes, especially with iOS on Apple, when people are going to their client in general, like email client, the email is getting automatically opened, okay? So you might see, for example, the 70% open rate, but your real open rate can be 40%. Now, there's nothing you can do with that, but just know that it is not 100% accurate metrics. Now, it can be used for you to track if you're landing into the inbox, because if you're not landing into the inbox, if you land to the spam, the email will not get opened because people are usually not opening the spam folder on their phone. So this is something to keep in mind. Now, again, you can send the Slack from it, which is the premium action. You can make the phone call. Now, usually we never use it because we are using our own voice AI with a third-party platforms, but you can make the phone calls here. You can leave a voicemail. Now, again, you can attach the file here. So for example, the MP3 file that you recorded saying, hey, thanks for registering on our webinar. I am pretty excited to see you here. And then this will be left as the voicemail. There are so many nuances depending on the country, depending on the carrier. What we do, we actually do the personalized voicemail drops. And it's a separate thing, because first, before attaching the personalized MP3 that was created by the AI voice, you need to generate it, you need to call an external API, you need to get the file back and only then upload. But again, it's not possible with the default voicemail action from the HighLevel, because you cannot map the external MP3 links here. Now, the messenger, again, pretty self-explanatory. Facebook Messenger DMs, same with the Instagram DMs. Manual actions to SMS or the calls, it's basically if you don't want to automate the communication with the client through the AI, or you don't want to send them the static messages, what you can do, you can draft the SMS right here, but in order to send it, the actual human would have to go into the conversations, would have to go, as you can see here, into the manual actions and kind of approve this action. Basically, it's usually used if you are communicating with very sensitive information, especially with the AI, if you don't want any mistakes. Now, we're building the AI sales reps that have 99.9% accuracy, so it's usually never a problem. But in case this is what you need, you would be able to let AI craft this message and then put it basically in the draft, and then people click send and technically approve that. We actually use it very often on the process where we debugging and testing the AI reps and deploying it on the trial basis. So when we're coming to the new business, when we deploy the AI sales reps and sales systems, we first, usually few days or weeks, depending on the volume, some of the messages are getting approved manually by humans just to make sure that everything is good. Same thing with the calls. Again, you cannot really craft the actual, call script, but you can put it as an action for people to make a call to this specific prospect. GMB messaging, same thing. Send internal notification, basically the internal notification through the email. You can do, let's say, whenever something is happening on the pipeline, you want to send yourself a message hey, this prospect was created, right? So you can do it right here. And you can say, okay, from to name again, but you're going to send it to the assigned user. So the user who being assigned to the conversation. And if you assign him before that, what the subject is check now, and the user was created, something like that. Okay. And again, so if we move it right here, but after creating the contact, we better assign this contact to the specific user. So now this internal notification email will be sent to this Eugene1 user. And this user has the email address. That is why it's going to send this email to the email address of this specific user. The next action is send review request, which we usually never recommend, okay? Planning to do a separate video for the loyalty flywheel and requesting reviews and everything in this nature, because yeah, sure, there are, you can send an email with a review request, and you can configure this email through the reputation management that I was showing you before on the HighLevel interface right here. You can configure a default template, and you can actually personalize this template with the contact details hey, first name. But what we like to do, we like AI to reach out based on the conversation history dynamically like a human across multiple channels to this person, to engage with him first, ask if the review is positive or negative. If negative, then ask for the feedback, and if positive, route to a specific platform. So there are a lot of nuances that comes to that, but just know that if you're serious, I wouldn't recommend you to send a review request like that. Now, conversational AI. This is related to the internal AI agents from the HighLevel. We never use it. I've been mentioning this everywhere. I do not recommend you, if you are serious and if you really want to improve the sales pipeline quality, and if you want to close deals, to use conversational AI sales reps from the HighLevel. Now, they are okay. I'm not saying that they're good or bad. They are okay. There are a lot of use cases for them for a lot of companies, but we use our own backend, AI agents, and there is a reason for that. If they would be good, we would use them. It would, simplify the entire thing, of course, the entire setup of the lead activation system that we use, but they are not there, and they will never be there because we are using the things like the multi-message processing, like the dynamic follow-ups, like the unified memory, like the custom analytics, and it's just not possible to do all of this with the internal conversational agents from the HighLevel, and it's probably not going to be possible within the next 2, 3, 5 years. Facebook Interactive Messenger. So these are the things that can only be used if you have the trigger, which is the Instagram comment, right? So if you scroll down here, remember we were having the Instagram comment. So if we say, okay, this is the page, Eugene, so we first need to do that. So if there's like a trigger, so whenever someone makes a comment on the reel, which is, this specific reel, so here, these options will now be available. So as you can see, Instagram Interactive Messenger. So here we are replying to the comment via DM, and we can say, hey, here is your bonus and a template, and we're gonna paste the trigger link right here to our resources. Okay. And then there's like a default timeout that you can actually choose. You can add the buttons. So you can say the button could be like to open the website, and it could be like resource library. Now here, unfortunately, we cannot really use the trigger links, but you can use the dynamic links from the custom fields, or you can just use something static. And basically what is this is it's waiting for a certain amount of time in minutes. So let's say we're going to wait for 10 minutes, and if the prospect is not going to reply, we're gonna do something like, if the prospect clicks on the resource library, we're gonna do one thing. If the prospect doesn't click on this link or a button within the 10 seconds, you're gonna go into this. See here, you have the buttons and you have quick replies. Now they're the same thing. If you ever saw how the buttons are rendered on the Instagram, you have the buttons literally, so it's basically like the text right here, right, and buttons right here, but the quick replies is the text right here, and if you have the input text field here, it's the quick replies here. Again, it's like the same thing. Quick replies are just usually used for a more human touch, but like people are aware of that, so it's not gonna make any difference. So let's remove that. And let's move to a different action. Reply in comments. This is actually a very new feature, again, also from the HighLevel, where you can so not only, so when people are commenting under your reel or the post, right, not only you can send them the DM, but you can also reply to their comment, okay? And you can reply it in the dynamic format, and you can also like the comment. So this is like a very nice feature. Again, they're like adding it in beta. We've been testing it. It's working fine. WhatsApp customer service window check and send flows and are the actions that are related only to the WhatsApp. For the contacts, now what you have for the meta interaction channels, and this is actually relevant for Instagram also. You cannot send outbound messages through the automation, through the API. You can do that through through your phone, but you cannot do that through the API, through the automations, outside of the 24-hour window. It means that if, let's say, I sent you a message, hey, hey, what products do you have? And then let's say it's either you or the AI sales rep said, we have chairs. Do you want them? And you're asking the question. And now, let's say this customer who sent you the message originally ignores you for 24 hours. So for 1 day. Then you cannot send any messages. You cannot send like follow-ups. I'm generalizing. So you cannot send marketing messages, or the messages that you can send, for example, on WhatsApp, needs to be approved by Meta. Okay? Again, they are doing that to prevent the spam. People are still spamming, but this is kind of makes it a bit easier for on their side to manage. So what it basically means is if you right now try to send, let's say, like literally, okay, so let's say if you are, finding the contact, create, okay, so whatever, and let's say you want to send this user a WhatsApp message, okay, so WhatsApp. So if you try to send this user a message right now on the WhatsApp, and you say, okay, from this number and with no template, and it's gonna be like, hey, this message will not be delivered if this is the flow. And the reason for that is because this customer has never interacted with you before, right? He never interacted with you. So this is technically outside of the 24-hour window. Or let's say if the customer did interact with you and ask this question, if this question was more than 24 hours ago, it's still not going to be sent. So in order for you to send the messages, there is an option, is to select a template here. So if you go into your settings, into the WhatsApp here, you have the templates. So you can approve the templates that if, the Meta approves, you will be able to select them right here. And then, so for example, here's one of the templates as a reminder. Hey, first name, your webinar starts in 2 hours. So even if this prospect has never before interacted with me on the WhatsApp, he will still receive this WhatsApp because this was the template that was approved. There are a lot of the nuances when it comes to the templates. Again, there will be like a separate guide for that, but just know that. And the reason why I started to mention them is because one of the actions that you have right here is the WhatsApp customer service window check. So this is basically checking if the customer goes under the window, under 24-hour window. So here it says open. It means that this customer has the window open. So he interacted with you within less than 24 hours. So what's usually happening is that when it's closed, again, when it's above the 24-hour window, so you will like use the template, okay? So you will use only the approved templates here, okay? But here you can do whatever. So you can do another WhatsApp, and you can say it's gonna be a free form message from this number, and you can do whatever you want. Of course, again, I don't want to go too much into the details. You can say, okay, Eugene, but why not just approve all of the outbound templates and then don't have any problems? There are a lot of problems like with the templates because they cannot be like, for example, if the template is approved as marketing right now in 2025, you cannot send the marketing templates to the phone numbers in the US. And they, I think, added this in March or whatever. So in March 2025 or in the middle of the year, they added this as a rule. Okay. So now you cannot literally send the marketing templates to the phone numbers in the US. So this is why, so there are a lot of the nuances. Okay. So this is pretty much everything that you need to know about this window check. If we go here, again, send flows, you can send the WhatsApp flows. We usually never use it. We still use the WhatsApp messages. Send live chat message. Now, the live chat message is basically a message within the chatbot interface that you can create. On the HighLevel, you can create a custom widgets, right? If you go to the site, you have a chat widget. We call them the chatbots. So here you can create a new widget, and let's say this is going to be like chat widget number 5. You have a interface, you can create the styling, you can do whatever you want. But here's how it's going to look. Okay, it's literally a chatbot. So we have our AI sales reps that are talking within this, chatbot window, right? And when the reply, so when someone sends the message, our bot, like our agent on the back end through the end generates the response, And then we send this response using this send live chat message here. We're just like mapping it, but it doesn't matter. You can say, hey. So now this user will receive a hey message right here. Again, so usually live chat message is never used in the automation workflows if you're not automating the entire communication between the user and your AI sales rep. Now, the next action is appointment booking conversational AI bot. We never use that because we never use the AI bots from the HighLevel. Update conversation AI bot status, book appointment. Pretty, again, self-explanatory. Now, this is where some confusion comes in. Like when you are booking an appointment right here, usually the time is static, right? So let's say you're gonna book it in this calendar and you can make the time dynamic. So you can get the time somewhere from the webhook, okay? So let's say in this parameter, you're gonna say a booking time, okay? And you're gonna send the booking time dynamically, okay? Again, keep in mind that this needs to be in this format. So it needs to be sent like this. And then you can technically map this time right here, but the use cases for this is very limited. So usually you have a standard time, like which is a static one, right? So let's say the appointment will be on the 8th and at, let's say 4:01, whatever, something, right? Now you can say, okay, Eugene, but why would we book an appointment with the people with a static time? Now, for example, from the real, life scenario that we use, we run webinars. And what we like to do, whenever people sign up for the webinar, they, of course, getting created as the contact inside the HighLevel. And because we're using the reminders before the webinar, we really want the person to have an appointment attached to his contact in the HighLevel. He's not booking it in the calendar because it's not an appointment. It's actually an event, which is the webinar. So he's just signing up for the webinar. He gets created in the HighLevel, right? And then what we do, we actually here book an appointment with him. We're not sending him any reminders about any confirmations for this appointment. We do send the reminders, but the reminders are not about appointment, but about the webinar. So it is only used for our technical purposes to then process all the automation logic. So here, let's say on the 8th, the webinar will be at 9 p.m. Okay, which is not okay. So this is not. It's 24/7. So it's 9 a.m. Anyways, so this will be a 9 a.m. and you can assign the team member, for example, the Eugene Kadzin, and you can save it. So now this contact on the backend will have an appointment that is actually set to this time, which is the time of our webinar. But this contact will not have an email confirmation that, hey, your appointment has been booked, because it would be very confusing because he already booked the webinar, right? So it's then used for our purposes to then check what's the time left for the webinar and send everyone the reminders. Just know that this is one of the use cases where you would want to use the static book appointment time. Log is external call. This is for the purposes of tracking all the activities outside of your CRM when you are having a contact right here and when you are making a phone call, for example, to this contact and this phone call will be logged in your interface right here, but maybe you're using a third-party phone platform. So for that, you would use an external call log. So technically you can automate that. So technically when you're using something like a Just Call, like this, a third-party platform to make the phone calls for your sales team, when the call is made, you can trigger the webhook. So once this webhook is triggered, then you can log an external call saying that, hey, this call has been through, this duration, right now, this prospect and whatever, right? And maybe you get all this information from the Just Call to this specific webhook right here. The next action is the WhatsApp Media, and WhatsApp Interactive Messages. And they're very similar. Usually they're used for WhatsApp Media and WhatsApp Interactive Messages are used for, automated flows, usually for the marketing, but we're primarily using the WhatsApp as basically like the DM, as I was showing you, right? So we are selecting the number here. We are either selecting a free form message or we're choosing the template, and we can enable or disable the branch. We can enable the branch in order for us to know that if the message right here is not going to be delivered, right, you might want to send this prospect an SMS. Now, to be completely fair, we're sending both SMS and WhatsApp always, as well as the email. But in case you don't want to spam people, in case they don't have the WhatsApp, you can send them a text. Same thing applies to the media and the flow sending right here. Now, send the data. Okay, we have a webhook, custom webhook in Google Sheets. Now, these are one of the biggest and most popular and most important actions that you would have and you'd need to learn if you want to master the connection between the HighLevel and the backend and the powerful tools like N8N, Make.com, or other platforms. Now, the webhook is basically a simple webhook where you can have a method here of, let's say, posting. You can maybe get this specific webhook right here as the URL, and you can post your own custom data or the headers. Now, you cannot test it from this module right here, and you cannot include the body. And this is why we almost always use a custom webhook action right here, because it has more options, right? Now, of course, it depends on your specific scenario. And you can say that this is a premium webhook, so we're paying a 1 cent or 0.4 cents per execution if we are on the higher plan. Maybe you don't want to use that and you want to use a regular webhook, which is free. But again, usually the price is not a problem, especially when we're talking about the volume. So here we can get anything. And for the sake of this example, let me actually illustrate you the double sync between the different workflows on the HighLevel. So let's create a different workflow, okay? Let's actually start from scratch. And here, let's input the trigger as the inbound webhook, okay? So we're gonna get this webhook from here, and we're gonna paste it as the URL right here. We're gonna do the post. It's gonna be the custom event and no authorization. Let's say that we're gonna post this body, like contact ID, name, email, phone number, and we are gonna send the query parameters. And let's say it's gonna be we are sending email, let's say country, okay, country, and let's say it's gonna be Belarus, something like that. Okay, now, so we can save it right away. But if you want to save the response from this webhook to then use it further in your workflow to map the custom values that you're gonna receive from this webhook, right? You want to click on this button, but you will not be able to save it because you first need to send a test request. So here we can choose any contact basically and send a test request. So here we got the 200 status, and the status is success. Here, if we click on the fetch results, you'll see that this webhook was ran, and here we're sending name, email, which is empty, phone number, and query parameter, which is Belarus. So if we save that, we create a contact, let's say, again, it doesn't really make sense because you're sending the contact from the HighLevel, but I think you got the idea. So here you can create the contact with the email, and then you can update this contact, maybe the country, right, from the country that was provided on this webhook right here. Again, it's here and query parameters, country, save. Okay, so now you will be able, if you are receiving something back, you will be able to map it. So if you want to map this status to, for example, some other custom fields, if you do the update contact field, and let's say, do we have a status? So something like we can check anything like chat history. And here, because we have this custom webhook, you can see it's here. Now, it's not this webhook. So this is the custom webhook that is inbound webhook that triggered this workflow. But this is the webhook that you can find right here. And here, see, we have a status. If you would receive some other information from the webhook, it would be here. So you can map this status to this chat history in case you need it. So this is very commonly used, and when we are going to go over the specific examples, I'm going to show you how we're using it, but I think you got the idea. Again, just know that the custom webhook has more flexibility and gives you an ability to map the response from the API call that you are making to then, to different actions within one workflow. Now let's go into the internal actions that the HighLevel has. Now, these are more like a programmatic actions that are manipulating the data or helping you to send the people towards different things. The most popular is the if-else statement, which is, again, very, very self-explanatory. So let's say you want to check if the email address of the person is Outlook or the Gmail. You would give it a name, like Google or Microsoft, and you would have a scenario receipt. So here you have a branch, and let's say the branch, the first one, which is like the branch is, again, so if we save it right here, we need to add the condition, but you'll see it. So the first branch will be Google, okay? And here's the condition. Let's say, we can say, okay, contact email contains gmail.com as an example. Save it. So here we'll see, okay, so this is the if statement, and the branch, we have one branch is Google, and other branch is none. So if the email doesn't contain gmail.com, it's gonna take the none route. But we want to have another branch to check if the email is Outlook. So we are gonna add the branch and I'm gonna say it's Microsoft, and if the contact email contains Outlook.com, it's gonna add a third branch right here. And again, if it's not Google nor Microsoft, it's gonna go to none. And you can, of course, build on top of that for each branch. So like say, okay, if it is, like we can say and or will be used. So let's say if like the email contains Gmail, or maybe if the email contains like proton.mail, maybe like let's say this domain will be like a Google owns domain, something like that. And you're gonna, of course, not put any changes to the branch structure, but it's gonna check if the email is Gmail, it's gonna take this route, or if the email contains proton.mail, it's gonna also take this route. So I think you got the idea. This is, again, very commonly used across all the workflows, and this is how they work. The next one is the wait. Wait is the node that allows you to wait for a certain period of time, okay? So here you have multiple options, but the main one is the time delay. So here you can wait for, let's say, like 1 minute, and you can choose hours and days. Basically, you're gonna wait for a minute. Now, a life hack for you guys is because there are no seconds, you can wait for the seconds by saying 0.1, which is going to be basically 10% of the minute, which is 6 seconds, okay, for the waiting. If you click on the advanced window, you can classify when to actually go after the wait module. Maybe, for example, if today is Friday, okay, and if we wait for 12 hours. So if it's Friday right here, and the user waits for 12 hours. So now, after the wait is over, it's already Saturday. But here, we do not have Saturday selected. So until it's Monday, within 9 a.m. or 5 p.m., based on the time of your account on the HighLevel, it's actually not gonna go anywhere. It's gonna sit on the wait. But when it's Monday, 9 a.m., the prospect will actually go to the next step. And you can do whatever you want. You can also add the different filters. So you can add a current day of the month. So if the current day is, let's say, if it's first only, so only on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and only if the current day of the month is first, you're gonna go and execute the next step. If it's not gonna exit the workflow. It's just gonna stay on this specific action. Now we also have here the event appointment time and event service booking time. Service booking time is not really relevant if you're not using the service booking calendars, but appointment time is what we usually use, because when the customer, for example, books an appointment, okay, and it's used if we have a trigger, for example here, right? And if we go into the appointment here, customer booking appointment, right? Customer booking appointment. So here we're gonna wait for the event appointment time before, let's say 1 day before, or we can say 24 hours before. 24 hours, it's 1 day, before the appointment, we're gonna move the prospect to, let's say, sending an SMS, hey, our appointment is tomorrow. Tomorrow, because again, there is 24 hours. So the prospect is gonna create an appointment for, 24 hours, or let's say like 7 days before the actual, date of the appointment. So like if today is 10th, the customer creates an appointment for the 17th. So he will land into this action and he's gonna wait until the appointment is in 1 day. And in case the appointment is sooner, this is what you select here. You either move to the next step, move to the specific step, or you skip all outbound communications. So let me explain. Let's say it's 1 day here, right? So we are sending, hey, our appointment is tomorrow. Then we're gonna copy the same action right here. But instead of 1 day, we're now gonna wait for, let's say, 2 hours. Okay? And so here, we're gonna wait 2 hours before an appointment. And then we're gonna send another SMS saying, hey, your appointment is in 2 hours. Okay? So the user books on the 10th, right? Today is the 10th. It's gonna wait for the 16th, 1 day before here. Then it's gonna send this SMS, and then it's gonna wait again for what? For 22 more hours, because this is exactly 24 hours, for 22 more hours, right? And then it's gonna send an SMS, hey, your appointment is in 2 hours. But what happens if the user books an appointment in 1 hour, if you enable this option in your calendar? So let's say right now is 4 p.m. And so what if the customer actually goes to your calendar and books the appointment for the 4:30, okay? So it's in 30 minutes. So he's gonna go over it and he's gonna land here. And obviously it is less than 1 day. So he's not gonna wait for 1 day before appointment, because appointment is in 30 minutes. And this is what you specify right here. So do you want to move to the next step right here? Do you? You probably don't, because the next step is, hey, your appointment is tomorrow, but your appointment is in 2 hours. You can move to a specific step, very rarely used, or you will skip all the outbound communication. And the SMS is basically a part of the outbound communication. So it's gonna skip and go here. Same thing here. Is it it's not gonna wait for 2 hours because the appointment is in 30 minutes. So it's not going to send this reminder because it's going to skip, and because this is the last action, it's just going to exit the workflow. So this is how this option is used. Now let's delete everything right here. If we click delete all the actions from here, confirm. So one more thing that we need to discuss is the overdue. So usually, again, it is used for, as they're saying, on the invoices or payments. So if you can wait, so like, let's say you're sending the user an invoice, right? And if the invoice is overdue, so let's say if it's due tomorrow and day after tomorrow, it's gonna wait. So it's gonna wait until it's day after tomorrow if it's not completed, and then go to the next step. Now you also have the different CRM events. The first one is the condition. So basically it's going to wait until these conditions are met. So for example, contact details, let's say until the city is any of there or is not empty, okay? Meaning, so usually the city is not available in the CRM, for example, if you're not, extracting the address from the customer. So this customer is going to be added to this workflow, and until someone actually, input the city of the customer, he's gonna wait here. But once they do input it, he's gonna go to the next step. Now, again, more kind of relevant example could be done with the email. So if the email, like for example, the contact was created with the phone number, so until the email is empty, it's not gonna move anywhere. But when it's not empty, it's actually going to trigger the rest of the scenario. So this is what's called like CRM conditions. Contact reply. So here you are waiting for the reply to the message. Now, it is used if we put before. So let's say we create the contact, we assign it to the user, right? And let's say we're gonna send an SMS to this user. Hey, what is your name? Again, let's say this is the question. So here we can wait for the user reply and reply to the SMS that is here. Okay, and we can literally indefinitely wait for it, like 10 years. Okay, and when the customer replies to this message, we can just assign him a tag. Okay, something like that, right? But again, it's very rarely used. What it's used with the timeout. So maybe you're gonna give the user 2 hours to respond to this message. So you're gonna wait for 2 hours. And if the customer replied right away or within the 2-hour window, he's gonna go here and it's gonna add the tag to this customer, right? But if the customer doesn't reply within the 2 hours, so he ignores you, what you can do, you can send him a follow-up. What is going on? Now, this is used for follow-ups. Basically, when you are building the conversational AI sales reps, one of the most important features of them is the ability to send follow-ups to users, right? Because again, when it comes to the customer support, it's pretty straightforward. So the user comes to you, to your business, right? Send you the question. You respond to this question and you're good, okay? So it's checked, okay? You don't need to follow up. But when it comes to the sales, it's much more than that because you're usually first engaging. So you are proactively doing something. Okay, you're asking something, the user. Then you're going back and forth. But as with any sales process, usually customers just ignore you. Okay, they ghost you. And let's say you're going to say, hey, are you in the position to invest money right now? Now, this can be the question that users don't want to respond and they just ignore you, or maybe they got too busy and they forgot to reply to you. So you would want to send a follow-up like, hey, did you see my last question? And I wish it would be that easy if just like using this wait, and if they don't reply, saying like, what's going on? But again, so this is static, right? What we do within our system is we analyze the entire history of the conversation. So we analyze all this. And our AI sales reps, yes, they wait. Okay, so we're using basically this wait module, and we're waiting for the contact reply. If the contact reply is not received, we're having multiple actions here where we analyze the conversation history and first identify if the reply is needed or not. Because, okay, what if this is like a thank you? Okay, thank you. So when you're sending a thank you message, you do not expect the customer to reply. So if he ghosts you, right? So there's no like reason to, hey, following up. So there is no reason to send a follow-up, right? So the follow-up first needs to be smart and understand if it's needed or not. And second, if it's needed, it should be dynamic. Like, hey, have you seen my question? Or so maybe if the customer don't, like, if you ask the money, like, are you in the position to invest? You would want to rephrase this question. Like, the reason why I'm asking is to understand, like, if it's a good fit. Are you looking to build it for the business? So like you're rephrasing the question so that now to re-engage the prospect in case he doesn't want to respond to the question. So this is what it means to build in true AI sales rep. Okay, so we're using this. Let's go back. This is the old automation here. So we are using this wait module, contact reply, but we're also adding the custom features on top of that. Now, this is the contact replay. Here, we can wait for the trigger link clicked, okay? Meaning, again, so you can select this trigger link, and let's say in this SMS, thank you, here is the resource hub. And you're gonna send this trigger link. So if they click on this trigger link, we're gonna add the tag, or we can actually add a score, like modify the score of this prospect because he clicked on this link and add the 4 points. But if he didn't click the link, we can say, did you see the link? Something like that. Okay. Again, it should be dynamic as we do that, but this is what you can do. Okay. So this is the trigger link event. And again, same thing with the email event. So you can, wait for you in case you are having the email event right here, right? Instead of the only text, you'll have the email, send an email. You're gonna have the subject as test, and hey, this is me. I'm gonna send it. So here now you can wait for the email, for this email. And if we have, by the way, just for the reference, email number 1, and if we have 2 email steps in this workflow, which is the email number 2, we can check which email we're waiting for as a reply. So email event, which one, the 1 or 2? If it's 1, or maybe it's both, okay? But it's 1, select email event. So again, opened, like sure, but it's not super relevant. So it's better usually used as a clicked. So whenever someone clicks, right, you're gonna do something. Now you can say, okay, if it's clicked, can we use the trigger link? Yes, but maybe you have like 5 different trigger links within the email. So it's better to whenever they click on anything, it's gonna be, it's gonna proceed. Also, what is used is for the spam. Like for example, when the customer marks you as spam, you might want to add a DND, do not contact, across all the channels, right? So you don't want to contact this person across, the text, email, phone, messenger, WhatsApp, anything. So this is pretty much it. This is everything that you need to know about the wait module action within the HighLevel workflow. So let's go to the next one. The next one is the goal event. Now, the goal event is actually used when you want the prospect to go into this specific module after a condition is met, okay? So let's say we're picking the email, okay? And the goal is email is received, okay? So if the email is received, right, you are literally going to, or either received or the opened or clicked, you're gonna go into here. So maybe if we add the wait module without any conditions, so let's say we're gonna add the wait for 10 days, okay? So maybe you're sending the email number 1, email number 2, then the SMS, and then you're waiting for 10 days. And then you're having the goal. And the goal basically means that, again, if these conditions are met, so if the email number 1, something was clicked, it's actually going to go from here to here. Yeah, I mean, with the email, it's kind of worst bad example because you can use the wait for the email event that we're discussing in a few minutes ago. But if you use something different, for example, if the payment was received, okay? If the payment was received for this specific product, the payment is success, you're gonna add it, okay? And let's say that we can just copy all the sections and let's place them right here, okay? Let's remove one of the goals. So here's what's happening. Let's say we're adding this prospect to the automation, okay? Something is happening, you're sending the emails here, and then you're waiting for 10 days. Okay. Then after 10 days, you're sending another set of emails and another SMS. But while we're waiting on this step, on the backend of your HighLevel CRM, if this prospect who has been assigned to this workflow makes the payment, right, and purchase this product, one prompt live event, and the payment is success, he is going to skip. So he will, like from this, he will jump straight up to this goal because the goal condition was met. So he will not receive all this email, event, SMS, and he's not going to wait another 10 days. So this is basically a way for you to shortcut the path of the automation if the certain conditions of the user are met. And you can see all the events right here. Same thing maybe for the appointment status, right? So if the calendar, like let's say this, an appointment is either new or confirmed, meaning that the customer created the appointment, and maybe this is the entire automation that is made for you to book an appointment with the customer. But if he books it in the first 10 days, he doesn't need to receive all these other reminders. So you can just go straight up to this goal and then exit the workflow, or do some other actions and say, hey, thanks for your booking, right? Now, again, you can create a lot of different ways to use it, but this is basically the main ways of the possibilities, how this can be used across the different pipeline stages and the workflow statuses. Now, the next one is the splitter. The splitter is pretty much straightforward. So when a lot of people come in to the workflow, to the automation, right, you can divide these people into multiple paths. So let's say you would want to split a certain path like this, and the remaining, so it's 40, like this. So you're going to have 3 different paths, A, B, and C. And for this path, you would want to send like this is 1 and SMS number 1. For this path, you would want to send the SMS number 2. So this looks like the if statement, but the difference is that there are no predefined conditions. It is random. It's randomized on 103060. Usually, again, it is used when you are trying to spin tags the different emails that you're sending to like remove the spam parameters, like to just send bigger amount of messages to not trigger any spam filters, or you would want to test them. So let's say again here you have the click rate. So you can send SMS 1, SMS 2, SMS 3 and let's say you can divide them by 33, like 33, 33, and 34, right? So equal. And you can test them. So you can compare them to each other based on the stats and see which ones are performing better. So this is the splitter. It's a very powerful thing when you are sending a lot of the outbound campaigns and messages. The next one is the update custom value. Again, this is also used usually with the Facebook pixel and the Facebook ad campaigns, or Google or TikTok ad campaigns. When you are generating the lead, then you're assigning the custom value to this lead, for example like $100, so that then in the campaigns on your ad manager you can see how many what's the revenue that was generated, not only how many leads were generated, and you can just, based on the certain conditions, update the value here. GoTo is a huge module. So let me actually show you how it works. But before that, let me get an if statement, or we actually have a statement here. So basically, okay, so let's say that, again, going back to the example that we're building, so there is a trigger, we're finding the contact. The contact was found. Not going to do anything, but the contact was not found. We're creating the contact and assigning the user to the contact. Then we are going to send an SMS again. And let's say send an SMS, thank you for opting in, right? Something like that. Now, technically, like, it doesn't matter if the contact exists in our HighLevel or not. We want to send it to all of them, right? So to all of the contacts, we need to send this thank you for the opting in, right? But again, if you put it right here, for example, right? So if we copy this action right here, after this, if we remove this trigger and if we remove this trigger, after this inbound webhook is triggered, we cannot send this message because it's not gonna understand what is the contact to send this message to. So that is why we first need to either find the contact, right, here, or, not find the contact and then create him. So when we create him, okay, we're sending the message. So how would you send the message to the contact that was found? Technically, yeah, so you can duplicate this, right? You can duplicate this, but now it's two separate flows. And let's say after that, you would want to send an email, okay? You would send an email with some parameters. And so what are you going to do? Like, are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to like copy it? So it's going to be like you're going to basically overcomplicate the workflow, and you're going to duplicate the actions. So it's not needed. So because the people who found just needs to go to this SMS action. This is where the go-to module comes in. So if you add it here, if you go to this go-to right here, save, see, they now mark as green. So you can click on this. And now when the contact was found, it's just going to from here go to the SMS. So yeah, it's gonna skip the create contact because the contact was already created, so he exists, and not assigning to user because this is like, let's say we're assigning this contact to the user because it's a new contact for the user to check. But we don't need to do that with the existing contacts. That is why we're skipping and going straight to the SMS. Again, very, very commonly used within all of our workflows. The next one is the date time formatter. Because we're powering our agents and our workflows by the third-party tools like the N8N, we almost never use it. So it's basically like if you want to format a specific date that you got from somewhere, from the inbound webhook, from the query parameters, let's say it's not going to be email, it's going to be the date, and this date is going to be this format, and you need to format it in this format so that then you can reuse it. You can do that, but again, it's just like easier to literally send an API call to ChatGPT or to N8N to like reformat it and like generate whatever you want. So through the custom webhook, so it's again not usually used. Number formatter, it's the same thing. Again, text to number. So if you're having a like this set of text, you can format it with the numbers. Again, a very, very specific use case for that, but it is there in case you need it. Math operations, same thing. Set event and start date. This is very important module if you want to use the wait modules based on the appointment time. Let me explain. Let's say that, going back to the previous example with the webinar, let's say this user is getting created, he received the SMS and the email, right? We need to use the wait module, and we need to use, event appointment time. Let's say 1 day before the webinar, we want to send him SMS, okay? Your webinar is in 1 day. But again, in order for you to have this wait module with these conditions, you need to be able, like this contact needs to have an appointment time. And this customer haven't booked an appointment, right? He, let's say in the trigger, he filled out the form, right? And the form could be the live event sign up. So this customer literally filled out the form and said that, okay, I'm interested for this webinar. And somehow, right, he provided the details. And somehow we need to send him a text. And yes, so sure, the contact was found because the form created the contact automatically. Sure, it's good. Like the contact is good, email, phone number is set. But somehow, in 1 day before the webinar, we need to send him the reminder. But because this customer didn't book the time, we first need to book an appointment, right? This is what I was showing when I was reviewing this block. So let's say there's going to be a live events calendar, and let's say our webinar is on the 8th at 9 p.m. Okay? 8 at or 6 a.m. Okay? Something like that. So now we book an appointment. But here's kind of the trick. when we book an appointment like that and then wait for 1 day before this appointment, and all the customers will have the same appointment date and the same time, because again, it's not an appointment, it's a webinar. This is not going to work, unfortunately. Okay, so this is not going to work, because it's gonna work only if the appointment was created through the trigger. So this is where this module comes in, which is the set event start date. So here we set a specific date, and the date is 8th at 6 a.m. So it's the same date as we provided here. But because this is the action that is specifically for this specific workflow, setting the date of the event or appointment, now this module will work. Now I know that it's kind of a pretty much like unique use case, but there are more use cases where you would want to set the event start time manually for the workflow instance for this one, not across the entire HighLevel, because across the entire HighLevel, again, so this customer will have an appointment. But for this specific workflow, you need to use that, okay? And usually, again, it is used when you are doing something like that with the wait for event appointment time. Now, the next action is the add to another workflow. Again, we use it a lot, as well as the remove from the workflow. Add to the workflow is basically, let's say you're having like this workflow, and like you're gonna create a new workflow right here. And instead of you processing everything in one workflow, you're gonna send this customer to a different one. As an example, okay? Let's create a workflow right here. Let's create a new one from scratch. And let's say that this will be our reminder workflow, okay? Reminders, testing. So again, so let's say this will be like the SMS. Did you see my message? Okay, and it is also going to be the email, okay? So email is the same thing, test, message, like that, okay? We're gonna save it, but we're not having any triggers and we're not having any contact details. So of course, like, why would you have something like that? And the reason for it is because instead of you, so let's say after this wait module, after like 1 day or something, you don't want to send an SMS from this. Maybe you don't want to overcomplicate the workflow, so you want to kind of separate the workflows based on the intent, or you have something like a specific use case. So what you can do, you can send this customer to a different workflow. So you can add to the workflow, and it's actually not going to display reminder workflow, I think. Yeah, it's not going to display because, again, we need to save it right now. We need to reload. It's something to keep in mind. So whenever you are creating a custom field or a tag or a new workflow, you cannot reference it from the workflow that you're working on until you reload. So here you'll say, no, it's not go to, it's the add to the workflow. And now if you see a reminder, so see like reminder testing. And you also pass the input parameter triggers, so you can pass everything that you're getting from this inbound webhook, just in case, and save. So now what's gonna happen, instead of you sending the messages here, it's gonna exit this workflow, and it's gonna add this customer to this workflow now, and here it's gonna continue, and then here you'll do the wait, and you can do anything that you would actually want. Maybe you have here a wait time for, let's say, 10 hours or 10 days, and then you're gonna have another email that is gonna send, okay? Something like that. Maybe this is the case. So let's say you're assigning this prospect to this workflow, okay? Or this customer get added to this workflow somehow. So here it's waiting right here for 10 days. But maybe here, okay, so we don't do that, okay? We don't do that. So let's say this customer is here. And this customer can also be somewhere here, okay? Let's say if we have, for some reason, like a wait module here, and it's gonna be like 10 days, okay? So maybe this customer is sitting here and also sitting here in two different workflows. What you can do is maybe you can do a goal, okay? So let's say a goal, and the goal will be appointment status. So if the appointment status for this calendar is new or confirmed, you're gonna come from here, you're gonna skip all that, and you're gonna come to the here. And then you want to send an SMS here, like thank you for appointment. But you also know that this customer should be somewhere in other workflows, right? So maybe in this workflow. And here is gonna say like maybe he's still waiting. So he's still waiting for 10 days, even though, like for example, here he jumped from here to here because these are two separate workflows. He's still waiting here. So in 10 days, he will receive another email like, do you want to book an appointment? Okay. So he's gonna receive this email. But it doesn't make sense because the customer already booked an appointment, but he's subscribed to this workflow. So what you can do after this goal is met, you can actually remove the customer from all workflows except the current one, or maybe the specific one, or like another one, the specific one, for example, which is the reminder testing. Again, I'm giving you this as an example, but basically you're waiting, the goals are met. So let's say these are all the reminders for the person to book an appointment. Maybe these are like educational content, right? And this is maybe a straight reminders like, hey, what's up? And like here, do you want to book an appointment? So this is like educational content and this is straight up content. He's in both. Here, when the appointment was created, he will jump and he will skip all the education content. But we also don't want to send this straight up reminders for the appointment because he already booked it. So that is why we are removing this customer from this workflow and we're exiting right here. So he's not going to receive the email. So this is what is used for a lot of the times. You also have the array functions, same things as you have with the anyden or make. They are a little bit limited compared to what you have there, but you can still do a lot of things in case you need it. You also have a text formatter, same thing with the dates and numbers, not using it too much. But one of the newer nodes is the custom code, which when was added was a huge thing because this is where you can execute a custom code within your workflow. And so here you can, for example, have like the number one, or let's say a key, or let's say it's going to be like a city that you can then manipulate as the variable like here and assign it to a contact like city, okay, like that. Again, I'm not going to go over, the code in this specific video, but just know that in case you want to use the code nodes, the same as you have with the anyden or the make, you can use them here. Now, AI here, the code with AI is not that bad. I would still suggest you to use Claude and build a function because, again, usually what you would do, you would manipulate the data, like usually clean some sort of a JSON. So it can be like very, very easily done with a Claude, okay? So this is a custom code function, which is very, very powerful. There are quite a few different actions related to the workflow AI and the internal AI from the HighLevel. Again, I'm not going over it specifically because we're not using it. And I would not recommend you to use the workflow AI as well as the AI agents from the HighLevel. Again, use the HighLevel as the framework, as the actual tool to build your system and power it by the tools that gives you the flexibility in where you can have the entire control over everything that is happening. And GPT powered by OpenAI, but if you need it, please just make the external API request through the custom, webhook to the anyden, and inside the anyden, just use the AI agent node, and it's going to be very, very flexible. Plus, you're gonna save a lot of money and time on modifying it. Now, again, you can modify the appointment status. You can add a note to the appointment. You can generate one-time booking link to then send to the customer, specifically like using like a link based on a calendar. So if this is the calendar, now you're basically generating the link, and then in the SMS action, say, so you can use this generate one-time booking link in, like, you can use this booking link, but again, usually it's never used. You can just send the direct booking link and you're gonna be good. Now, the other actions are involved with the opportunities. They are restructuring their opportunities actions, but they are pretty much the same. You can create or update the opportunity on the pipeline. So again, if we go back into the opportunities, into multiple pipelines, so you can create the opportunity here, right? You can add an owner to the opportunity, because if you, for example, check this opportunity, you know that you have the owner right here and you have the followers of the opportunity. So you have multiple people. You have the tags, you have the custom fields, you have the different tabs here, and you would do that using the update opportunity kind of tab, where you're gonna, okay, so say the field and all of these opportunity related custom fields, you can update with the custom values. So this is pretty much straightforward, and the same as with the contact details, updating the contact details, updating the name, assigning the contact to the subscribers, to the followers, and to the owners, right? Payments, you can do the Stripe one-time charge. You can send the invoice, you can send the estimates and documents and contracts. Again, so kind of same thing as you were having with the triggers, but just flipping on the other side and doing it as an action. Marketing, Google, Facebook, custom events. One of the things that you need to understand if you're gonna run the ads is to use the Meta Conversion API. This is what we always use to actually track all the events within our funnel, because right now it's kind of harder to do with a simple, script and pixel embed on the website. That is why you would want to use the custom events. And so, for example, here, when here, like, let's say you're gonna have a trigger, which is the order, right? So the order submitted, and let's say the global product is, let's say, this product. So when this prospect, buys this product, you can do the Meta Conversion API, and you're gonna say, okay, so you're gonna put the access token, dataset ID, Facebook is gonna be a purchase event, and you're gonna send the value to as a $600. Now, remember what I was saying when I was going over the custom data, right? Update custom value. So this is what you're going to be able to change. So maybe if the customer buys an add-on, you would actually provide the current value and the new value so you would change it from like $600 to maybe like $1,000 if this prospect buys an add-on. So this is like very important for you to understand in case you are running the ads. The same thing, as you can see, they have about like Google Analytics, so you can send the custom data. Affiliates, memberships, courses, all other actions are pretty much dependent on your use case or custom through the discovery page based on the different apps and integrations that you would do for your own HighLevel account. So this is pretty much everything that you need to know about GoHighLevel automations. Again, be smart with the flows that you are building, know your use case, understand the basics. Keep watching my videos because we are using HighLevel a lot. We are powering it by the advanced AI tools like n8n to create our lead activation system and multiple AI sales reps. In the future videos, I'm going to go over the specific use cases, and I'm also going to build the complete solutions from zero. If you're looking for me to build something specific, let me know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.